Hello and good evening. I'm Willi. I would like to talk about two specific performances. One is a performance for one performer and for one visitor. It's called Anywhere, Somewhere, Everywhere. And the other one is Bodies in Urban Spaces, a performance for a group of at least 20 performers or more. For both, the starting point or the idea comes from city architecture and the way city is designed, including its given movement perceptions. Both projects happen in the city, but they're very different. The one is bodies is so much exposed and visible, and the other one is hidden. Audience can share their experience in the Bodies project, and in the Anywhere project, there's only one audience member. The audience member is for herself. About Bodies, I can show a lot of photos, and for the other one, it is very hard to show images and photos of the experience. Also, therefore, I decided not to show any photos while I talk on this project. I also would like to state in the beginning that about 8 years ago I decided in my artistic work really to focus on space, and in several residencies and projects that were commissioned to me, they allowed me a deeper research and gave me the possibility to experience and find out about different aspects of space, and they gave me the opportunity to develop ideas and also to think about and also develop various and different forms of presentations. Because I realized very quickly that working on space means also that you have to take into account the relationship of performance and the audience, the visitors, and as there is no fixed setting, it allows you to create different forms of presentations. In these various projects, sometimes I was focusing on a more economic, on a political, social aspect of space, but also purely sometimes how we can perceive a given space and what is involved in this perception process. And I have to say that not all of these results or performances I could document, because simply the presence of a photographer or a video maker would have disturbed or interfered the experience of the performance. Or the specific spatial situation did not allow a proper recording. Anyhow, I find this is an interesting point that is also discussed in architecture photography. How can video and photo documentation represent space and spatial experiences? Okay, so I'd like to start with Anywhere, Somewhere, Everywhere. I would not like to explain and talk so much about the technical details, because anyway, I'm not the right person for this. Also the requirements, I will mention a few requirements and also the problems we had to overcome. I would like to give you an intro to the idea first. So Anywhere, Somewhere, Everywhere is a supposedly audio guide tour into the city installed on a mobile phone. But it turns very quickly into a walk and into a conversation of the visitor with a person that stays invisible and that had followed and observed the visitor. I call him the shadow. The shadow brings himself into play by contacting the visitor via a short video or a photo that he had been made secretly of the visitor. So the visitor gets, after a short briefing, he gets a mobile phone and uses it as an audio guide. and the video shows shows him or her walking with the while he's listening to the mobile phone. And then shortly after, the shadow calls the visitor and introduces himself or herself, and asks him and invites him to go for a walk together through the city. So the idea is that, or the intention is of the shadow is, he invites him to also to reflect traveling and visiting a city. And at the same time, it is also a way to approach and get to know a city in a different way. Because I decided to give to the shadow a few offers that give informations of places and sites in the city. And these are places that where you normally don't have access to. So it's in a way, it's underlying this reflection of traveling and underlying this reflection of traveling, it's also an alternative to, or an alternative way to discover a city. In this project, I wanted also to open up concealed spaces for the residents, spaces that exist in the city and that on the one hand are not visible, which may be literally behind, above, below, next to, or in between those spaces which are directly accessible. And on the other hand, there are spaces, they may be visible but non-public spaces, secret, hidden or private spaces, not normally accessible to the general public. Often they are easily spotted, they may be substantial and intriguing buildings whose interiors can only be visited by officially authorized people, while to the ordinary resident, these spaces may seem to accommodate unknown and clandestine activities. But they clearly have a specific political, economic and social significance. At this time, these places may seem irrelevant for our lives, but upon closer inspection, their real meaning will become apparent. Besides that, I created also pathways that led visitors into tunnels, caves, basements, park houses that led into tunnels, cafes, backyards. And when I couldn't make access for the visitor, or when it was forbidden, I tried to get access and make these places visible through photos or short videos that I stored on the mobile phone. Besides this, I created different, I called it guiding instructions, that would lead the visitors from spot to spot. And these guiding instructions included physical tasks or guided the gaze of the visitor. All of them had the goal to bring them the city closer by offering them a lot of interesting details that you can find on street and on buildings, but you normally don't look at. The visitor was invited by the shadow to decide or to choose from these offers, or some of them also just wanted to find out where is the shadow, and who is following me. The visitor could decide whenever to stop, and he could call for a shuttle service to bring him back to the starting point. And this shuttle service was a tandem. A few words on the organization. We set up an information center where people could call or go to in order to book a walk. When the visitor got his appointment time, he had to show up 10 minutes before. And before leaving, he got a short briefing how to use the mobile phone. The information center was at the same time the service center for the phones and the place where the shadows could take their break as well. A master student developed a special software for the mobile phone Nokia's 6680. And we faced two major problems. The first one was memory capacity, and the second one, the handling of the phone. The phone didn't allow us to upload as many videos and audible information as I wanted. And because we thought we can use as much video material as we used in another project before on a PDA, on a portable digital device. Also, we had to slice the video clips so that they could play without any interruption. And then the second problem, the handling. Yeah, after a few experiments, we decided to simplify the handling and to minimize the features of the phone. So in fact, people got a phone in their hand, but it wasn't a normal phone anymore. It would have been too complicated to switch from phoning mode to play the recorded data material. And also we wanted to make sure and wanted to be safe that the visitor can handle this tool after a 10 minutes briefing, and that he doesn't run into technical problems which would really annoy him or which would have prevented him from this experience. Also, we had to make sure that the visitors could receive phone calls or send text messages, and also that at the same time they could trigger all the informations on the phone in the simplest way as possible. So this digital tool was a hybrid between a phone and a PDA. A few words on the visitor. I think that the visitor of this tour has to be curious, sometimes also brave, open and willing also to operate a technical tool. For some of them, for some of the visitors, it was more interesting to find out who was following them, so it got more a game instead of like experience the city. And there was one person that didn't want to continue because she found it too creepy. A few words on the production time. This project involved a software designer. He developed a new software for the mobile phone, 2 architects, and a group of architecture students that we had involved in the research on sites in the city, and 3 performers. I did in 2 residences my research on sites and places in the city with help of the students and also and locals, and in the 3rd and last residency we edited all the text and visual material, and we put it up. We put the contents up on the phone, and we spent a lot of time in testing the phone with several guests to improve the handling and also to practice the communication between the shadow and the visitor. We did 5 performances. We did 5 days of performances in a row, and we had 18 per day. So each shadow did 6 performances, because approximately each performance took an hour, sometimes more, sometimes less. So 90 people could experience this event. All right, so